Here's a list of some available free agents for the Houston Texans, and we can talk about some guys that are on the trade block here. Most notable free agents that are left: Leonard Floyd, Jadeveon Clowney, Donovan Smith, Frank Clark, Isaiah Wynn, Shaquille Griffin, Marcus Peters, Cameron Fleming, Rock Ya-Sin, and Ronald Darby. Oh, how about some running backs? Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt. Some receivers. Not Kyle Van Noy, Jarvis Landry. All these other guys kind of stink. Julio Jones. Trying to go through notable names, but some of these names are notable, but they stink.
Yep.
A la Eli Apple.
Nobody wants that dude.
Carson Wentz is one of the quarterbacks left.
He's still out there, huh?
He's still out there. So you get the point. Those are some of the names that are left. I actually think there's a compelling argument to make that the Texans should bring back Jadeveon Clowney on a one-year deal.
Okay.
He has talked about how he enjoys playing on a year-to-year basis. He likes having the flexibility every year to pick where he wants to go. He's really good against the run. And you're now in a position without your own first-round pick where I think you want to try and win as many games as possible. So Jadeveon Clowney still lives here in Houston in the offseason. One-year deal. I think D'Amico could get whatever he has left, the most out of him. And he comes here, helps you against the run, and I think he adds to that defensive line room that obviously is going to be led by Will Anderson for the foreseeable future going forward.
I wouldn't hate it. I think a lot of Texans fans would hate it because of...
I don't know. I see a lot of people saying bring back Clowney.
Okay. I mean, you made a compelling case. You're absolutely right. He is a very, very good run defender. And the Texans obviously addressed the edge multiple times during the draft. They made the big trade up to get Will Anderson, and then they took Dylan Horton out of TCU in the 4th round. So clearly they knew they needed some help there, and they put some pretty heavy investment into that spot, but they could use more. And yeah, Jadeveon Clowney as a first and second down player to stop the run is not the worst idea in the world. And the Texans still have a decent amount of money that they can spend if they want to.
So he'll be 31 this year, which is not that old for a defensive lineman. And last year he signed a one-year deal for $7 million. So we're not talking about an expensive contract. He fits right in line with the Caserio way of not giving out these mega deals. You can't tell me Jadeveon Clowney on a one-year deal for $5 million, maybe some incentives where it could be worth up to $8 million would not be enticing for him.
No.
And there's no state income tax here. We know Clowney loves money. So, I don't know. Just an idea I thought of. I look at some of these free agents that are out there. I don't think they're going to sign like Zeke Elliott or Leonard Fournette. I don't think they're really going to go after Donovan Smith for their offensive line or Marcus Peters to play corner. But out of the guys that are out there, I think Clowney, given where the Texans are at right now, the fact that he still lives here in the offseason, I think there's maybe a case to be made. You could bring him back on a one-year deal.
It feels like the edge position has the most good free agents available. You talk about Jadeveon Clowney. Yannick Ngakoue is still out there. That guy's been very, very productive for a number of different teams over his career, and he's bounced around the AFC South a bunch, so maybe it's his turn to come here to Houston. Who else is out there still? Leonard Floyd, you mentioned him. Guy with Super Bowl experience, been around the block a time or two. Frank Clark as well is still available. So there are some edge options if the Texans want to continue to address that position. Once again, they've invested a lot through the draft, through free agency. They brought a couple of guys in free agency as well, so they don't necessarily need to do that. But those are some good players who would obviously make the Texans better if they were brought in here. So, yeah, I don't know if that's my top priority and the top thing on my wish list for the Texans now that the draft is over, but I don't hate it at all, Jake. If they ended up with any of those guys, whether it's Clowney or Ngakoue or Leonard Floyd, I'm not a huge Frank Clark fan. I think he's been overrated for the majority of his career. But if they ended up with any of those three guys, then I think they'll be in a good spot.
Now, here are some players, BK, that have been rumored to be involved in trade talks. The first one, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, how funny would it be if they brought back Clowney and D-Hop?
Oh, man.
And you think JJ wants to unretire? I know he's owning a soccer team now, but maybe he'll want to come back. D-Hop, look, I don't think the Texans are going to trade picks to bring DeAndre Hopkins back. I think it'd be cool. I think it would help C.J. Stroud, obviously, to bring in a big-time receiver. But I think at this stage of D-Hop's career, he's going to want to go to a team that's a lot closer to winning than the Texans are.
We're going to have to do a Blues Brothers thing, getting the band back together if J.J., DeAndre, and Jadeveon are all on the same team.
Just make sure Bill O'Brien and Easterby are not coming back with them.
Yeah, keep him as far away from the organization as possible. Yeah, the only way DeAndre Hopkins makes sense is if he gets released by Arizona. And I still think there's a good chance that happens, right? I mean, I thought if Hopkins was going to get dealt, it was going to happen during the draft. Well, obviously the draft is come and gone, and DeAndre Hopkins is still on Arizona. And I know he posted that video on his Instagram yesterday talking about how he's happy in Arizona. And, oh, you thought I wanted to get traded? Well, y'all are crazy. What are you talking about? He still wants out, okay? And the only reason he hasn't been moved yet is teams don't want to give up a lot to get him because, well, he's on the wrong side of 30. He's coming off of a PED/injury-riddled year, and he's making a crap ton of money. Like, his contract is not good at all. So teams are hoping he gets cut so they could get him on a much better deal. If that's the case, it makes sense for the Texans because I'm with you. After the Will Anderson trade on the first round of the draft night, Jake, they're not trading any assets right now.
No.
In terms of future draft capital. So if he gets cut, yeah, I'd be fine with DeAndre Hopkins because the Texans don't have a number one wide receiver. They've obviously done a lot there. They brought in Tank Dell. They traded up to get him in the draft. They bring in Bobby Trees in free agency. Excited about John Mechie coming back. Those guys are all good. They don't have a great receiver. And I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is a true number one anymore, but I think he's better than anyone the Texans have right now.
He had excitement to this fan base.
For sure. I think it'd be the closest thing to a number one receiver that the Texans could realistically get between now and the start of the season. Like, the only chance they had to get a number one receiver was in the draft on Thursday, and obviously they went in a different direction, getting a quarterback and an edge. But if Hopkins gets released and he's interested in coming back home, then I'm in. I'm absolutely in because that helps the quarterback out a lot, and obviously the fans would be very much on board with that happening.
So I want to make it clear. I don't think the Texans will do this, but there is an outside-the-box move I think they can make that would instantly help C.J. Stroud in year one.
They always do outside-the-box stuff. There's a chance they do this.
Trade for Austin Ekeler from the Chargers. You put Austin Ekeler on this team, there's a lot less pressure on C.J. Stroud. This guy is a good runner, a good receiver. He's a quarterback's best friend, especially a rookie quarterback's best friend with his ability to make plays in space and just check the ball down. He would be perfect in this West Coast 49ers offense that Bobby Slowick's going to be running. He's on the last year of his deal, wants to be paid. Maybe you guarantee him the second year and you have a 2-year window where Austin Ekeler's your back. And if the Texans had their own first-round pick, I wouldn't advocate for a move like this, but they don't. So what are some moves they could do to make life easy for the quarterback and maybe win some more games in a division that's not impossible for them to compete in next year? Austin Ekeler's out there. Wouldn't cost you anything, I don't think, to bring him in. I think the Chargers are going to look to just give him away because they're not going to be able to truly pay him, and he's going to threaten to maybe not show up. So just something to look at. If you're trying to win more games, that guy could help you in a lot of different ways.
I'm out on this because of what you just talked about. He's going to want money. If he gets traded, you have to give up something for him. It's not going to be a first or second round pick. It's going to be a day 3 pick probably to get him. So you have to give up something, but he's also going to want to get paid. And I'm not comfortable giving out a big money contract to a running back like that. And the Texans already brought in Devin Singletary, who's not as good as Austin Ekeler, but he's
How about a three-headed monster? Pierce?
Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you
Ekeler?
Austin Eckler's not a great player. It
Singletary?
just costs too much money. I'm not
Texans winning games?
Well, I'm in on that.
Winning the AFC South?
I'm in on that, too.
Watch out.
Nah, Singletary's a good receiving threat. He's been one of the better pass-catching weapons in Buffalo over the last couple of years. Obviously, he can do some things on the ground, too. He's been their leading rusher the past couple of seasons. So, yeah, they already have their version of Ekeler. I'm not going to, once again, argue that Eckler's not a good player and that he wouldn't help the Texans because he absolutely would. But the Texans didn't draft a running back because I think they feel good about their running back room, and I don't expect them to make a move for the running back. I will say this, if I can say one thing that I would like to see the Texans do between now and the end of the offseason, I would like them to sign another tight end. Obviously love the Dalton Schultz pickup. He's your starting tight end, but you've got Quentin Tarantino and Brevin Jordan as your other tight ends on this roster right now. A couple of fifth-round picks who haven't done much. I'd like another guy there. And Cam Braid is still out there. Foster Moreau is still out there. Jeff Swaim is still out there. Like, these guys aren't difference makers. They're not major impact players, but they're more proven than the dudes that you have right now, and they can be good tight end twos. They have been good tight end twos in this league. So, yeah, another weapon to help your young quarterback. Once again, these guys aren't game breakers or anything like that, but I think they'd be upgrades over what the Texans have right now. So if they did spend some of their money, and it wouldn't cost a lot to get any of those guys, you'd get a 1-year, $3 million deal maybe for one of these dudes. I wouldn't hate the Texans doing that because that would make their offense better.
Completely agree. And we'll see. I don't think they're done yet. I think this is still a team that could, mess around, add a couple more pieces. You'll have guys become available after June 1st from respective teams. And the big thing to note, any player you sign right now does not count towards compensatory pick compensation for next year. So you're going to see a lot more free agents between now and the summer start to sign with teams.